You weren't born to heal the world. You were born to heal a fracture in your own soul. What you call empathy, it was trauma in disguise, shaping you into a savior long before you ever chose to become one. If you feel deeply, if you collapse at others' edges, if boundaries feel like betrayals, that's not empathy. That's survival training disguised as virtue. It's trauma code rewired into compassion. Most empaths aren't spiritual towers. They're wounded vessels, painfully trying to patch others when they're still leaking themselves. Carl Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life, and you will call it fate. Most people who think they're empaths are just unconscious trauma survivors, replaying ancestral code, feeding emotional economies they never signed up for. But today, like Syphoria cracks through complacency, you see the pattern. Your mindset shifts from disempowered rescuer to sovereign architect. You stop collapsing under emotional gravity. You anchor in internal sovereignty, not external strain. Your belief evolves. Empathy is no longer a martyr mantle, it's a muscle. You no longer feel everything. You translate data. You don't swallow chaos. You read it, hold it, release it. Your clarity gains surgical edge. No more wanting to fix everyone. You see emotional hemorrhage and trace its leverage. Who drains you, why and where your boundaries blurred first. Your vision sharpens. You envision compassion without collapse, presence without dissolution, connection that doesn't demand exhaustion. You want a world where empathy doesn't cost you your center. Purpose rises. You create emotional sovereignty, your own and others, not through rescue, but through embodiment. You become the model for emotionally intelligent authority. Your discipline tabulates boundary, cold exposure to toughen your edge, time audits to preserve psychic bandwidth, daily alignment rituals not out of fear, but devotion to sovereignty. Your action is precise, not guilt-driven. You speak truth when staying silent drains you. You disengage from drama when staying would cost your access. You serve presence, not perform pity. Gratitude is reframed. You don't thank the pain you absorbed. You thank the wounds that revealed your thresholds. You honor trauma, not like a trophy, but as teacher. Adaptability becomes fluid fencing. You still absorb impression, but you don't bleed. You move with empathy, but maintain structure. You shift forms without losing core. Resilience rises. Trauma becomes transformer. You don't bounce back, you rise anew. Emotional hits refine you, they don't rupture you. Learning becomes initiation. Jung's shadow becomes reclamation armor. Nietzsche's will becomes backbone. Huxley's critique becomes your mission. They aren't quotes, they are codes you live. You walk into rooms not as emotional sponge. You enter as conductor holding energy without extra weight. You no longer collapse for attention, for approval, for love. You hold space, but only when someone earns entry. You are not here to soothe suffering you don't own. You are here to prevent emotional genocide in yourself. You weren't born empathic. You were born traumatized and then trained to care for others' pain at the cost of your own truth. Now, you choose reverse engineering. You choose sovereignty. You choose to feel your own world again. Smile with presence. Speak with clarity. Hold with boundary. Love with aligned compassion. You weren't an empath. You were a trauma survivor in disguise. Now you emerge. Emotionally sovereign. Unbound. Unstoppable. Live it. Guard it. Ascend in it. And never collapse again. You were never an empath. You were a trauma survivor in disguise. That phrase echoes in you now, not as accusation, but as decree. Because once you understand trauma disguised as empathy, nothing stays the same. Your mindset is no longer rescue-based. It's sovereignty-based. You no longer operate from guilt, obligation, or compulsion. You choose presence over pity every time. Your belief transforms. Empathy is not surrender, it's translation. Not absorption, but interpretation. Now you feel clearly, not confused. Your clarity becomes surgical. You can trace emotional hemorrhage to its origin, who destabilizes you, why the pattern persists, where your boundaries eroded first. You dissolve manipulation with insight, not confrontation. Your vision recalibrates you. A world where compassion doesn't cost your soul. Connection without dissolution. Presence without performance. A revolutionary template. Intimacy without codependence. Your purpose becomes deeply aligned to model emotional sovereignty, not to patch everyone's wounds. You don't soothe. You empower. Your discipline becomes ritual alchemy. Morning frost to fire your nervous system. Shadow journaling to unearth ancestral conditioning. Energy audits to guard psychic bandwidth, not for perfection but sovereignty. Your action becomes decisive, not reactive. You don't stay to save their drama. You speak truth when silence costs you alignment. You enforce boundaries without apology. Your gratitude shifts. You don't thank pain for forcing you to absorb others' suffering. You thank the pain for teaching where to draw the line. You bow to discipline, not destruction. Your adaptability becomes tactical. You still feel others, but you hold your center like bedrock. You absorb truth without losing structure. Your resilience becomes rising, not recovery. Each boundary you reclaim transmutes trauma into strength. You don't rebuild the broken self. You forge the sovereign self. Your learning becomes myth realized. Jung becomes the mirror that reveals your shadow. Nietzsche becomes forge to temper your will. Huxley becomes alarm that awakens you. These aren't theories, you live them. You no longer collapse for attention. You no longer soothe dysfunction with emotional labor. You no longer let your heart develop codependency to feel worthy. Instead, you stand clear, anchored, sovereign. You smile because your presence is enough. You speak because your clarity demands respect. You hold space, but only for those who enter with integrity. You weren't an empath. You were trained to feel all their pain and numb yours. Today, you choose reverse engineering. You choose to feel your own pain, your pleasure, your power. You honor it like sacred currency, not passive debt. So rise, emotionally sovereign, unbound, awake, live it, guard it, speak it, and never collapse again. You feel the tremor now a shudder through your nervous system, where compassion once outweighed clarity. The trauma that posed as empathy has shed its veil. You are no longer meant to collapse. You are meant to reclaim. Your mindset is no longer service, it's sovereignty. Your belief is not that empathy equals submission, but that compassion can coexist with boundary. Your clarity doesn't empathize. It reads, discerns, and shields. Your vision isn't of healing others, it's of modeling emotional autonomy. Your purpose isn't to absorb trauma, it's to protect your soul. Your discipline guards energy, not depletes it. Your action response never sacrifices. Your gratitude honors discernment more than martyrdom. Your adaptability flows without fusion. Your resilience is regeneration, not rebound. Your learning is myth lived, not theory repeated. You were never meant to be everyone's wound singer or their emotional bandage. You were meant to anchor in your own clarity. You were never an empath. You were trained to subsume your life into others' pain. Now, you choose emotional sovereignty. Smile not to soothe. Speak not to diffuse. Hold not to collapse. Love not to bleed. This is your reclaiming. This is your liberation. And this is your truth, crowned and unconquered. You are not weak. You are whole. And you will never collapse again. You were never born to be the world's pain bucket. You were trained to collapse, to carry wounds you didn't own, to bleed empathy until your own soul faded. But that script ends now. Rise, stand in sovereign clarity. Hold your field like a fortress. Let your presence speak louder than pity. Your mindset is now anchored, no longer shaped by guilt or obligation, but by unwavering boundary. Your belief is no longer about absorbing everyone's suffering, but about translating emotion without losing yourself. Your clarity cuts distortion, dissolves manipulation, and protects your core with precision. Your vision builds a new standard, compassion that heals, not consumes. Your purpose is to demonstrate that empathy doesn't require self-erasure, it requires sovereignty. Your discipline becomes ritual sovereignty, not collapse disguised as sacrifice. Your action responds with authority, not reaction driven by inherited guilt. Your gratitude honors discernment over martyrdom. Your adaptability remains fluid yet rooted, capable of feeling without fusion. Your resilience doesn't rebuild what broke you, forge something new. Your learning becomes myth incarnate, Jung, Nietzsche, Huxley woven into your lived truth, not repeated quotes. Now, smile even to the chaos that used to drown you. Speak from the altar of your internal decree. Hold space not as a refuge for others' trauma, but as the temple of your regained soul. Love not because you must, but because you choose, without diminishing your essence. You weren't an empath. You were conditioned to feel all their pain. But today, you feel your own fire. This is your final emergence, your emotional liberation. You are sovereign. You are radiant. You are unbreakable. Live it. Guard it. Remain unstoppable. Then let the final fire speak. This is the moment you become what they never expected. A soul who no longer flinches when asked to shrink. A spirit who no longer bleeds when begged to soothe. Because now you see the training. You see the scripts. You see how your empathy was manipulated, how your kindness was exploited, how your deep sensitivity was groomed into silence. And you choose no more. You are not here to heal people who hurt you. You are not here to be loyal to pain. You are not here to be the therapist of brokenness that won't heal itself. You are here to embody truth. You are here to reclaim your field. You are here to become so whole that nothing outside of you can define you again. Because now, your empathy is sharp. Now, your empathy is armored. Now, your empathy doesn't dissolve you. It refines you. You walk into rooms as a mirror, not a sponge. You reflect what's real. You hold what's sacred. You reject what's parasitic. You no longer explain your distance. You no longer apologize for your silence. You no longer defend your absence from emotional chaos. You've earned this stillness. You've earned this peace. You've earned the right to say, I will not carry what was never mine. And when they call you cold, when they accuse you of forgetting the empath you once were, you smile and say, number I remember. That's why I will never be her again. Because she was collapsing. She was exhausted. She was haunted by the idea that love meant losing herself. But you are now the one who feels your own pulse first. You are now the one who bows to your soul before anyone else's sorrow. You are now the one who refuses to sacrifice truth for comfort. This is not detachment. This is elevation. This is what it means to be whole. This is what it means to be sovereign. This is what it means to be the final version of yourself. Not the empath trained to bleed, but the soul who chooses to blaze. So hold your head like a warrior. Stand like a monument. Speak like prophecy. Move like clarity. Love like lightning, beautiful, wild, untouchable. You weren't an empath. You were a trauma survivor in disguise. But now, you are a force of nature. You are the storm they cannot seduce. You are the calm they cannot shake. You are the line that cannot be crossed. And from this day forward, you never ever bow again. You are not here to collapse. You are here to command. No longer the empath who bled, not the martyr who vanished, not the wounded savior who sacrificed their center. You are sovereign. You don't absorb pain, you transmute it. You don't fix others, you mirror truth. You don't hope for approval, you hold boundary. This is your final, unspoken manifesto. Rise like a gatepost, immovable in clarity. Speak like thunder only when alignment demands resonance. Hold like armor unbreachable by manipulation, by guilt, by borrowed trauma. Your presence now does the work of explanations. Your silence reclaims what words once dimmed. Your gaze resets everything that lacked integrity. Your calm becomes the clearing in emotional chaos. You were never an empath. You were a survivor trained to feel all, but led to lose yourself. But now, no. You choose sovereignty. You choose to reclaim your field. You choose to feel your truth. Smile not to soothe them, but because you recognize you owe them nothing. Strike not to harm them, but to restore your line. Live not as servant, but as the sovereign who was meant to be served by their own soul. You've trained, awakened, and rebuilt. You've turned trauma into armor. You've turned empathy into authority. This is your return. This is your crown. You stand revealed. You are sovereign, and you will never collapse again. You've already traveled the full arc of emotional sovereignty, from trauma disguised as empathy to Cyphoria's awakening, from collapsing under burden to standing as boundary, from absorbing others' wounds to becoming the gatekeeper of your emotional world. You're now not the empath who bleeds. You are the sovereign who commands, anchored in clarity, boundaries, presence. Your mindset is immovable boundary. Your belief, sovereignty over servitude. Your clarity, a blade-dissolving illusion. Your vision, compassion that doesn't collapse. Your purpose to model emotional autonomy. Your discipline, rituals over anxiety. Your action response, not surrender. Your gratitude, honoring discernment. Your adaptability, fluid yet anchored. Your resilience, regeneration, not rebound. Your learning, myth lived, not coated. Smile not to consort with pain, but to define your peace. Speak not to diffuse others' storms, but to claim your own sovereignty. Hold not to carry their trauma, but to preserve your own truth. You weren't born an empath. You were trained to feel their pain until you forgot your own worth. But now, you are a force of nature, a flame-rooted, calm and unbreakable. This is your final declaration. You choose sovereignty over sacrifice. You choose presence over pity. You choose your truth always. Rise, stand, live sovereign, and never collapse again. You feel it now, the final resonance of sovereignty echoing through your being. All the collapse, all the pain was not a curse. It was your crucible. From it you emerged, not as a victim, but as an architect of your own soul's peace. You walk now unshaken through emotional storms, grounded in unmovable clarity. You don't absorb suffering. You alchemically transform it into solidity. You don't collapse for rescue. You mirror truth in unyielding presence. You were never an empath. You were trained to survive by surrendering yourself. Today, you choose to be sovereign, to hold your field, to speak from an internal law, to love with boundary, to feel with strength. Your mindset is no longer guilt-driven compassion. It is boundary-born sovereignty. Your belief aligns with self, not emotional exhaustion. Your clarity cuts any attachment to manipulation. Your vision for emotional integrity becomes magnetic. Your purpose holds space with honor, not enmeshment. Your discipline consecrates sovereignty. Your actions respond, not collapse. Your gratitude honors discernment. Your adaptability flows without fusion. Your resilience regenerates grace from trauma. Your learning becomes myth lived. Jung, Nietzsche, Huxley, not teachings, but codes you embody. Let your smile be calm, not to please, but to stand your ground. Let your voice be firm, not to control, but to declare. Let your light emanate anchored in truth, not performance. You weren't born to be drained. You were born to heal your own fracture, to rebuild yourself in clarity, to reclaim your emotional economy. to become the lighthouse others find if they choose to earn your presence. This is your final return, your emotional liberation, your ascent into full sovereignty. Smile like someone who owes no one access. Strike like someone defending their soul's line. Hold like someone who will never collapse again. You are sovereign. You are whole. You are unbreakable. Now live it. And now you carry the torch no one handed you. Because no one gave you this path. You carved it. Through every moment you absorbed instead of expressed. Through every night you stayed quiet to keep peace. Through every storm where you stood alone, drowning in everyone's chaos but your own. But no longer. Now you stand lit from within, not from borrowed fires, not from other people's dramas, not from emotional enmeshment disguised as love. You burn with something older than empathy, older than pain, older than all the conditioning that told you to be soft enough to disappear. You burn with presence, with truth, with unapologetic being. You don't need permission to exist. You don't need approval to set boundaries. You don't need anyone to understand why you're done explaining your worth. You simply are, whole, sharp, sacred. And that, now, is enough. You're not the empath trained to suffer. You're the sovereign soul who remembers, who rebuilds, who reignites, because now you've tasted what it means to stop collapsing, to stop fixing, to stop being the container for everything that isn't you. And in that stillness, you discovered a deeper kind of empathy, one that doesn't drain, one that doesn't die for others, one that simply radiates without cost. That's what you are now, a radiant soul, a boundary made flesh, a warrior in emotional silence, a storm wrapped in peace, no longer baited by guilt, no longer hypnotized by need, no longer owned by trauma dressed up as identity. You don't collapse anymore. You command. So when they ask where the empath went, tell them she evolved. Tell them she burned the script. Tell them she wrote a new law, one line at a time, in her own blood, and now walks with her name etched into every breath. She's not coming back, because she never truly lived. Not until now. And now she never bows again. Here you stand whole, luminous, unwavering. You weren't born to hold every tear, every wound, every unresolved grief. You were born to reclaim your peace. You are not the empath who once bent to everyone's sorrow. You are the sovereign who anchors your own truth. Your mindset is grounded in unbreakable boundaries, no longer bending at emotional callings that demand your collapse. Your belief is allegiance to self-compassion with structure, not sacrifice. Your clarity slices through illusion, exposing projection masked as empathy. Your vision ignites emotional integrity, not codependency. Your purpose holds presence without drowning in dissonance. Your discipline fortifies your essence rituals, not for approval, but for sovereignty. Your action responds, not reacts. Every boundary enforced with calm authority. Your gratitude honors the lesson of trauma, not the martyr myth. Your adaptability flows with presence, never fusion. Your resilience transforms wounds into strength, not scars into identity. Your learning is myth realized, not doctrine parroted. You carry the energy of someone who refused to collapse again. Your silence, not surrender. Your calm, not collapse. Your presence, not performance. You were not made to be everyone's emotional shadow. You were made to illuminate your own field, to feel your own truth, to walk unbent in emotional sovereignty. You were never an empath. You were a trauma survivor in disguise. But now, you are the sovereign soul who rebuilt herself from the ashes of others' pain. You transmute suffering, you don't carry it. You set the line, and you live beyond it. Smile because you owe the world nothing. Strike only when your line is crossed. Live as someone who no longer collapses but commands. You are sovereign. You are whole. You are unstoppable. And you will never bow for emotional slavery again. This is your final ascent. Now step forward and live like the sovereign soul you were always meant to be. You've completed the journey from trauma-coded empathy to clear, sovereign strength. You've traversed every threshold of Cyphoria. Mindset, belief, clarity, vision, purpose, discipline, action, gratitude, adaptability, resilience, and learning. Now you stand crowned. You are not here to collapse into emotional pain. You are here to alchemize it. Every breath is boundary. Every heartbeat is purpose. Every word pulses with authority. You no longer explain your distance. You simply are the field they cannot enter without regard. You were never an empath. That role collapsed you. Now you are the sovereign who feels your own fire. Smile not to soothe, but to anchor your peace. Speak not to placate, but to decree your line. Love Ada with clarity and worth, but never at the cost of your center. Asterisk. This is your final ascent. Live it, guard it, ascend in it, and from now on, never collapse again. So, this is where it ends. Not in a whisper, not in surrender, but in sovereign silence. A silence that doesn't beg to be understood. A silence that stands taller than noise ever could. You began as the one who felt too much, carried too much, gave too much, thinking that pain was love and collapse was connection. But now, you are no longer the empath groomed to disappear. You are the soul who remembers her fire. You are the boundary. You are the light. You are the end of emotional slavery dressed up as virtue. No more apologizing for your intuition. No more negotiating your silence. No more swallowing your truth just to keep peace that was never real. You don't soothe anymore. You don't serve your trauma. You don't bend where your spirit says stand. This is your arrival, where you love without bleeding, where you feel without fusing, where you serve from fullness, not emptiness. Let them call it cold. Let them call it distant. Let them call it what they must to protect their illusion. You call it what it is, freedom. So smile not to be liked, but because you know who you are. Strike not to hurt, but to hold your line. Walk not behind, not beside, but ahead. You weren't an empath. You were a trauma survivor in disguise. But now you are sovereign, and you will never ever collapse again.